Okay.
Well, the toughest part of having a farm in the Midwest and working with your wife is remaining married. That's the hardest part.
That's true.
I have learned to collaborate with someone very closely. I would like to thank Stuart Brioza because when he was at Tapawingo, he was my earliest mentor. I called him because I had heard he was the best. And if you're going to learn how to do something, you want to be mentored by somebody that knows what they're doing. And I've heard, guys talk about, bringing the product into the back door. Every time I brought stuff up there, he looked at it, he explained things. Anytime I had a question, he would answer the questions. And I think that's really important because from a grower standpoint, you need to know what the guy wants. And my son, he was, I think, still in high school when he spent a day with you, and he came back and he was really energized because he did not realize how these kind of restaurants were run. And this is a long time ago. Stuart had what I considered even today the best kitchen I'd ever seen. He was able to orchestrate the chaos, and I thought, this is something I need to learn how to do. If I'm going to run a business, I have to be able to orchestrate chaos. First my own, and then everybody else's. And when I listened to Mark Canlis talk earlier, it just dumbfounded me because what he talked about, I think the most important resource are us, the people. The owners, your employees. And see, my dad was in the printing business. He ran a business and he ran it like the Army. It was just top down, and he used the kind of language that, you wouldn't want to work for the man. And I don't want to be that way. And Stuart was that way. Stuart, people wanted to work with him, not for him. And I think that's really important. I want people to work with me, not for me. Because if they do, you get the kind of creativity, the kind of energy. They want to come to work and they want to be a part of it. They're valued. I think that's really crucial in running a business. So it all starts with the owner, and all starts with the kind of vision you have. I didn't start out with that kind of vision, but I had to get it in order to be successful. So Tina and I met we actually met a long time ago before we actually started going out. And then when we started going out, we both wanted to farm. I had started farming in 1976, growing commodity crops. Wanted to be a dairy farmer, so I was working for a neighbor of mine and milking cows. And one night we were milking cows, and this one cow stepped on me, and I turned around and I got hit in the face with a tail full of shit, and that was it. See, dairy cows, and the tail has hard stuff in this. It's wet and it's hard, and it's just bam, it's like, and you got to keep milking because they're all mooing. They don't stop until they're milked. So you got 90 cows to milk, so you just wipe your face off and keep going. And I said, I'm not going to be a dairy farmer. That's it. I'm going to find something else to do. I'm going to go back and be an engineer or do something, but I'm not going to do this. So one thing led to another. We got together, and she had some vegetable experience, doing gardening and things. And I thought, well, I'm good at certain things. Let's give this a shot. Guy up not too far from where Stuart was at Spencer Creek in Alden said, we want some stuff, and he gave me a lot of different names. So we called people and started doing what they wanted. And I think for us, our focus has always been to try to do first-class product, first-class service. If we make a mistake, we don't blink. We fix it. And then we try not to make the mistake again. We grow year-round. We have 8 greenhouses, about an acre under glass. We heat everything with firewood. I have 5 outdoor wood boilers. I buy 12 semi-loads of firewood a year and 8-foot logs, double bottom rigs. We burn probably 1,500 face cord a year, 6 face cord a day. It's an enormous project in the wintertime. But there's some advantages to it. Number one, I deal with the firewood, my son and I. So nobody bothers me when I'm running a 2-foot chainsaw. You know, I go out with a front end loader Mondays and Tuesdays. It doesn't make a damn bit of difference how deep the snow is. Last year we had 3 feet of snow at one point, 4 feet of snow. I go out and blow the snow back, push it back, move all these logs every Monday and Tuesday and cut wood. And then the rest of my help, you know, they get them to the furnaces and we feed the furnaces. And I've been relieved of some of the nighttime duties. At 1 o'clock in the morning we have to load all 5 furnaces. It's a half an hour, 40-minute project depending on the weather conditions. And so I do that. Winter growing in northern Michigan is kind of interesting. If for Michigan looks like your left hand, we're up in this part between the little finger and this finger, the ring finger. We're right up just south of Traverse City. And so our biggest issue is light. So right now, light, the sun, you know, the sun is lower in the sky, less light intensity, so things grow much slower, and certain things don't grow in the winter. Certain types of mustard greens we can't grow in the greenhouses. So we've learned over the period of time what we can grow successfully, and so that's what we do. We do consecutive seedings every week, consecutive transplantings in various greenhouses, lettuce, microgreens, things like that every week. And you know, somehow we made it work. Some days I'm not sure. I've really got good people that work for me. If it wasn't for these people, we wouldn't stand here. If it wasn't for my son, he came in, you know, he decided he didn't want to go to college. He spent part of the first year in college, and he just decided it wasn't his deal. So I told him, why don't you come back to work for us, and we'll make it work. And so he's given us what it took to get over that hump, because you know, succession of the business is really important too. And the other thing he's got that I don't have, when it comes to managing employees, he's got this kind of innate ability to keep his mouth shut first and think it through. I don't do it that way, as you can well imagine. I'm a really intense person. I've always been really intense, really driven, and to get to the point, to be in this business, I think to be successful, what I've had to learn to do is not worry about proving myself. You have no idea what it's like to deal with all these high-end restaurants. You walk in there, and a couple of these guys have talked about it. I just scared half to death, you know, because these guys, they're the top of the food chain, and it's like, you know, you're a minnow. And, you know, in the beginning when they would kind of bark at me a little bit, you know, I would just want to just get out the door as fast as possible and hope I had business the next week. But I learned to get over that. That was more me than them. And although I have had a couple of guys yell at me for various reasons, and I learned there was a couple of guys you could yell back at and you could still not keep the business too. So the ones I knew I could yell back at, I did. And you know, didn't make any difference. But the key for us was to find out what we could grow year-round, and you know, the seasons change, so you have to adjust to it, you have to adapt to it. We have a lot of different seed suppliers. We try to deal with people that, you know, like Johnny Select Seeds, New Gourmet, and a lot of, you know, the specialty seed companies, a couple of Japanese companies that have really high quality seed. Our growing process is pretty straightforward, but the media that we use is really important because we do everything in compost. And I think the big thing is just, you know, try to do it right. There's just so many facets to it. You know, and I'm really glad we have all these customers in Chicago because all these guys are great. I can go in and see what they do. I can ask questions. I've learned a lot. You get to see how your product's used. Not only our product, but how everybody else's product is used too. I really like it. It's really interesting. Like today, you know, at the lunch, it was a vegetable burger. It was good. I was really surprised, you know. I mean, I raise vegetables, but that doesn't mean we eat them, you know. I shouldn't say that, we do. But I mean, it just kind of caught me off guard. I'm a little bit nervous because I'm not used to speaking, you know, extemporaneously and getting up in front of people. So anyway, I'll turn it over to my wife. She can carry the rest of the load.
Okay, gosh. Oh, I always wanted to be a farmer. I grew up in Los Angeles, suburb there, Burbank, and we had gardens, and my mom was a gardener, and then it was the early 70s, and of course you went back to the land with your, what do you call those flip-flops on the bottom? Yeah, those kind of pants and little beads and stuff. And so I'd always thought I'd go up to Oregon because Oregon's always sounded so green, and Burbank is so brown because it hardly ever rains. And but then I had a chance to come to northern Michigan, and it's on Lake Michigan, and right by the lake. And the way the sun comes through the woods in the afternoon, you know, that afternoon light. Well, there we go, gonna move. And so I fell in love with the land and the climate. I thought snow was wonderful, and spring, all those wildflowers, boy, you know. First there's that one, and then there's another one. And so, and then I met Mike. I met Mike in AA. We're both in AA, and he is 10 years ahead of me, and so that was important to me that, you know, because everything from that hippie thing to AA was about 15 years, which seems to be the average career certain people have before they crash. And yeah, so anyhow, yeah, and so I was divorced, and I wanted to farm, and I had my 5-year plan. I was gonna like rent a house down on the River Road and grow stuff, and I thought I could peddle it around to restaurants. And then I started talking to Mike, and he had a tractor. He had dirt, and I was like, okay, that's good. And so we got started, and he a friend of his young son had a restaurant. There's 3 fine dining restaurants in 6 counties up there. There's Tapawingo, and I would think Windows. Would you count Windows?
Oh, at the time, yeah. Yeah.
And Spencer Creek Landing, which is an old house on a lake, and there's a place where you can pull in with your boat. You know, if you want to go to town, it was in a little town, Alden, and it's the landing there. You know, if you live on the other side of the lake, and it was great. He said, grow weird things. And so we planted all kinds of things that first year. First, we had to adapt all the equipment from corn to vegetables, you know, the seed plates and all that, you know, and there's all this equipment. There's tractors, and then there's round things, discs, and then there's the drags, and anyway, stuff like that. So, and things are always breaking. So he's got 2 kinds of welders, the arc and the gas, and a machine where you can make things out of plate steel. It takes a long time, but you can cut through steel and push holes in it, and, you know, anyway, makes stuff all the time and fixes stuff all the time. And so that was great. You know, that's a big part of farming is the machinery, you know. And then there's the construction, because you got to build everything. You know, you got wood, and you got plumbing and electrical and water wells, water lines, frozen water lines, trenching water lines. Now there you go. If you ever want to do one, call us first before you rent the trencher machine. We'll give you some tips. And we built. So we've started out growing things in the field. The first year, the only thing that worked was baby squash. Yay, baby zucchini, maybe a few beans. The deer love the beans. So we're doing it by hand. We went out and we seeded with all kinds of stuff the first year. But it was mostly the beans and squash that we had something to sell. And so here's this 330 feet rows, because most stuff comes in 1,000-foot rolls, so you don't want to waste anything. So he laid out the fields. It was his idea. And so 2 rows bean plants. So what's that, 330 foot apart, that's 660 bean plants. So you have to weed them by hand with the hoe. So I just finished, they're just starting to have the beans. Oh, they're so beautiful, the French fillet beans. Just on there like little fingers. Then the deer.
The deer will come through. They come right down the row and they mow it down. They eat $1,000 worth of beans in a night.
Oh yeah.
So,
I do remember that phone call I got.
yes,
in the
yes.
morning when Mike
Yeah, he was the guy. He wanted to be.
Fuckers, he says.
Right.
What's going on? He goes, can I bring you up some Eric Gobert fed Benson?
Right.
I just shot 3.
Yeah, we have terrorist deer. I don't know what party they belong to, but they're terrorists. They just come. We've even had them in the greenhouses.
Oh yeah, you see their feet prints.
You see footprints in the lettuce greenhouses because we leave the door open in the summer, in the winter, or in the summertime. And the DNR said, "Don't call us. You don't need permits. If you catch one in there, shoot it." You know. So, but you don't dare. You don't
Don't
dare,
put a hole in the plastic.
No, I don't shoot them in the greenhouse because I don't want the plastic's too expensive now.
Yep. Yep. So we went from one chef to another, and then when Jeff Cole said that Stuart was coming in, and he'd been all over the place, and we should go and see him, and he wanted us to grow microgreens, which we'd never really heard of, and he wanted them bigger than the little wimpy ones. He wanted some kind of sturdyish. And so we did that, and we'd take them up and we'd say, oh, this is, yeah, it's real nice about it, you know. And I kept sending him odd bits that I would grow different herbs and different vegetables that would come up, because I have the opinion that you could never say never to growing things like, I don't know, tomatoes in the winter, basil. I'm actually planning on trying basil again in the dead of winter. And, so it was nice. It went from one chef recommend to another. And we had the one speaker that talked about how adversity can be actually an opportunity. One of our bigger restaurants, bigger customers, they decided to change from, you know, pretty fancy dining to burgers and beer, or steakhouse. And so that chef left, and now they're buying French fries and hamburger. And we had a whole field full of baby squash. We had 5 miles of squash row. The plants are 2 feet apart. You gotta like carry your bucket, you go down, you know, for 5 miles. And so, and Mike said, well, let's call the Grand Hotel up on Mackinac Island. It's this big thing. It looks like the White House and the whatever put together. And the buyer up there said, sure, we'll take 400 pounds or something. It was like, whoa. It was great. So we worked with them for several years until that fellow retired. And
Well, when the planes hit the buildings in New York City, our business went, I've never seen anything like it. That's when we learned to not have one big customer, because most of, 75% of our business is with the Grand. Planes hit the building, everything stopped in this country. And our business, we were lucky to survive then. So we learned to diversify. The key to survival is to diversify. Have a lot of products, not just have 1 or 2. So what we do is I think we have close to 200 different things. And so when somebody orders from us, they might buy $10 worth of 10 of this, 20 of that, 30 of that. You get an order for $300 or $400, maybe $500, and if you've got enough customers, you have a pretty decent income. The other thing is that in order to run a farm, we borrowed, everything we have done on our business has been money borrowed in the open market. No, we haven't had any grants or anything like that. So, their interest rates range anywhere from 4.5% to 8%, depending on stuff. When the recession hit us, everybody in Chicago and Detroit, business really slowed down. So what we did,
About a third.
yeah, the volume dropped, so we added customers, but the other thing we had to do was cash flow got screwed up. Well, you have to pay your labor, you have to pay your taxes, and people started to slowly get a little, they had trouble staying current too, so we worked with everybody, but we had to go back and borrow money to meet payroll a couple of times. So you do what you have to do to stay alive, and I can guarantee you it was really stressful for me because I just felt like I was living on the edge of this cliff and not knowing what was going to happen, because the bank want their mortgage check every week or every month, not every week. It feels like it's every week, but the reality is if you're in business, you do have to be sufficiently profitable. The other thing we did is we decided early on in this thing. One of the things with our labor we did, and this kind of dovetails with what Mark Hamlis was talking about, we decided to take less ourselves out of the business and pay the labor more. So our cheapest employee, I think, is $12 an hour. We started them out at 11 or 12 bucks an hour. And that's not a lot of money. I mean, when you consider gas is $3.50 a gallon, and you're in northern Michigan, that's, even if you're working 40 hours, that's not a lot of money. It's tough for people working in the food industry, whether it's at our end of it or your end of it. I think it's hard. The work is hard. I spent a couple of nights at Blackbird here in Chicago early on when I came here. I wanted to work in the restaurant to see what it was like. And so I worked downstairs, and then I came upstairs and worked on the line for 5 hours. And I'd done all my deliveries in Chicago that day. I got to Blackbird at 4:30 in the afternoon. We sat down and ate dinner at 11 o'clock that night, remember?
Oh, yeah.
With Dave Posey and Mike Shireen and these guys, and I was just dead. I was wiped out for 3 days. I could not work in a restaurant. I couldn't stand the pressure. You guys who work on the line, you guys who actually do the cooking and do all this stuff, I just thought, I couldn't believe it. I can deal with pressure, but I couldn't do that. And the ability to manage the customers, that's another thing. Because if you get a customer that doesn't like something, I'm sure they can be a real pain in the neck. And so I watched these guys working there, front of the house people, handle this one customer. It was just so deftly, I couldn't believe it. They handled the situation and eliminated what was potentially a really, big disturbance in the restaurant. And
yeah, that was a great experience.
Yeah,
And that's it. We're always learning from the chefs. They'll ask for some kind of a black pepper that they want to make mole with, some certain kind of tomatoes or.
Oh yeah, the kind of food you guys do. I remember, I was brought up on meatloaf and mashed potatoes, so to see this kind of food, it's really great. It's so intricate, the flavors are so good, it looks so good.
Oh yeah, the first time I had stuffed squash blossom, I was in the kitchen, I just delivered at V, and that's what they were doing, and he handed me one, I almost fainted. Oh, it was so good, and it's crispy and hot on the outside, but it's like tissue paper, and inside is cold goat cheese with some kind of nuts in it, and boy, that was great. And, but it's always fun, and there's so many different kinds of plants to get going, you know?
When we come into the restaurants, we do the deliveries. And so you come in and talk to the chefs. I would come talk to you at Tap Wing, all these other guys. I'd go back home energized. Come to Chicago, we're 275 miles from here, so we drive two full-size vans down here with our deliveries every week. Come hell or high water, doesn't make any difference how much snow there is, and boy, we drive through some hellacious storms coming down here sometimes and going back. But you get within a certain distance of Chicago, and I know I'm going to see all these people, and I'm going to see what they're doing, and I'm going to talk to them and get this feedback and taste this food and just be part of this energy, part of this, I don't know what it is, but you really, so we can go back home and transfer that energy to everybody that works for us. It's just worth it. I wouldn't, it's just.
Yeah, somebody talked passionate. I was taking notes with the speakers, and that's it. These guys are passionate. These ladies are passionate, and and it's fun, to go
Yeah.
in and say hi and break up their day, because it must be like a little bit tiresome to do the same thing over and over. And so we show up and with something different and something new, and see what they're doing, and always reading books.
Yeah, we share.
And but I got to tell you about the squash bugs. So, squash bugs, there's two kinds. One is the little flying around kind. They're easy to kill. You can just diatomaceous earth will get those. Then there's these other ones that look like tanks, and they're about that big. And so they come out, and then they hide down in by the stem. And their shape and their color, they're exactly the same as when the seed leaves die off on a plant. There's the seed leaves, and then the plant goes and does its own thing, but then the seedlings get brown, and they go like this. They look just like that. And then they lay eggs all over, and the eggs hatch, and I think they have like a new hatch every 2 weeks or so. And so there's the itty bitties, and then there's the toddlers, and then there's the school age, I guess, and the teenagers, and it's a family affair. I'm not kidding. They all stick together. They all take care of the smaller ones. I spent a lot of time in the squash field. But just like the fellow that was talking about sharpening the knives, you get the feel for it. So I can walk down the row now, and I can see if a squash bug's in there, because the plant's a little different color, slightly. And if I can find them, I bet I will, and they'd be like 3 in a row. And
Yeah, we don't use guns on them either.
oh yeah, 40 deer live at our house. There's the 20 that come through this way, and then there's the 20 that come through this way every night. And gosh, so it's beautiful too. It's beautiful land and beautiful country.
Yeah.
And Mike told, the tough guy here, he said he got into farming because somebody put him on a tractor to help him out with some work, and turned the soil over, and it was the fragrance of the soil, so.
Yeah, in the spring the soil smells so good. Even diesel fuel smells good some days.
Yep.
Well, one of the big marital issues we have is she says, you should have somebody else driving the tractor. No, I started farming so I could drive the machinery.
He needs to do the book work.
Yeah, right. I'm supposed to manage the business. No, I want to go put the implements on the tractor. I want to hook up the planter. Yeah, now it's all different. We lay mulch. Everything is, we have drip irrigation. We've been using micro irrigation and drip irrigation for, years. Almost from this, after.
Well, 10, 15 years maybe. We started doing that in 86.
Yeah, we had to. You couldn't irrigate everything. You have to irrigate and fertilize everything. So that's really important. The guy that was talking about the coffee, your talk on that, all those cultural practices you have to pay attention to. There's just a million things you have to pay attention to in order to produce a good crop. Not only the soil, the pH, all this soil chemistry, air chemistry, bugs. Last week we lost we raised micro basil. We raised tons of micros. All of a sudden Thursday or Wednesday, my son tells me, no micro basil for anybody. What the hell happened? We don't know what happened. Wednesday night or Tuesday night, all the micro basil is fine. Go in the greenhouse Wednesday morning, and it's like it got frosted, but it never got below 55 degrees. So there's stuff like this that happens. You probably didn't even know about it.
I didn't know about it.
No, she didn't know about it.
I was over there. I was in the lemon verbena.
Yeah, part of what we had to do too in the marriage was, 3 or 4 years ago, see, she and I were trying to manage the business. Okay, we're trying to run the employees. If you can imagine two of us trying to run the employees, what kind of chaos we had.
So we got departments.
Right. So finally I said, look, we're going to put the son in charge. We're going to put him in charge of production. You and I need to get out. So I called him in and I said, he didn't, no, I don't want to do this. No, you're in charge. This is a top-down decision. I'm your dad. You're going to work for me. You're going to run the production end of it. So the first thing he said was, we're both sitting in the kitchen. Can I fire anybody I want? Yeah. Does that mean her? Does that mean Tina? And Tina's sitting there saying, yeah, fire me, you know. So
Yeah.
she's still here.
Yep, yep,
She's still running part of the business.
yep. Yeah, it is.
And I can still drive tractors, and it's a great life.
Yep.
You know,
Not much
it's-
sleep
it's-
sometimes.
I don't think I would. I think back to where I was at before I started this, and if somebody told me I would be standing up here today talking about what I really like to do, I would have told them they're nuts. But I wouldn't do anything else. I would not go back and ever go back to the kind of life I had, even though I liked the working for Corning Glass and Johns Manville. I would never go back to it. Never. You know, this is
Yeah.
just so far so much better.
Yep.
Thank you very
And
much,
it's
Stuart.
all-
I'm so glad to see you.
Because it's, you guys. So,